A serious discussion of a serious topic that isn't completely black or white? This is not the content we signed up for, Craig. Just go back to dunking on people that we can all detest. Okay, look, I enjoy dunking on idiots as much as the next man. And although there were aspects of this whole fiasco that had me raising an eyebrow once or twice, for and against Max, I, along with most of the people who actually sat and watched the video, do agree with the sentiment that YouTube does have a problem. A problem with silencing creators who talk about very sensitive topics, whilst inadvertently, in my opinion, protecting these predators. But there were a few things that people had issues with, some warranted, some not so much. So that's what I want to talk about in this video. Not the usual hyperbole or just being angry for angry's sake or for entertainment purposes. This will be a more serious discussion with an interview with MamaMax at the end of this video. Are we all clear with that? Excellent. But before we get into it, usual housekeeping as usual. If you haven't already, why not consider subscribing to the channel, flicking my bell to be alerted when new videos are released. It's 100% free, and at the end of this video, if you decide that this isn't your kind of content, then it's entirely free to unsubscribe as well. And finally, if you are here solely for the interview with MamaMax, firstly, kick me where it hurts, why don't you? But I get it, this video will be chaptered, so you can go into the little timeline down below and skip straight to the interview if you really want. But I would appreciate if you took the time to listen to where I come from. That gives you an idea of where I was when I had the interview with Max. So about 2 weeks ago, popular pedo exposer MamaMax made a video with the hashtag #PickAsideYouTube. In that, he did his usual overly dramatic, hyper-edgy style delivery talking about how YouTube are defending pedos. And have once again rogered him by removing one of his recent videos. That video being an expose over a pedo ring in popular online game IMVU. The video was taken down over a nudity violation, that being a digital man's ass. This was the first issue that people had, saying that the video was based off of a lie. That it isn't that YouTube are defending pedos, it was just a violation over a stipulation that we are all very familiar with. That is a half-truth though, because yes, as YouTubers, we are aware that we are probably going to get a slap on the wrist if we have some kind of nudity in our videos, typically being an age restriction. But A, it was outright removed. B, naked yoga exists on the platform, and that is significantly more detailed. And C, it implies that the image was used for sexual gratification, which it wasn't. It was for context and information about the situation. The exact same guidelines that Reason B uses to get away with it. And D, YouTubers have been slapped up for even censored nudity before now. So the only 100% safe way of showing this information to people under YouTube's own terms of service and guidelines is to not show it. Going back to reason C quickly, because this really pissed me off too. Because in the response video, they bring up that point specifically and ask the legitimate question of, is this sexually pleasing to you?
Max documenting this formerly unknown behavior in a 90-minute documentary about the horrors of pedophilia and child sexual abuse in IMVU is somehow sexually gratifying to you?
And the fucking responses I've heard over this one, that it was for some reason such an outrageous question to make. The main one I heard saying that was from YouTuber Lyrics.
Oh my god. Oh my god, this guy's actually fucking a complete piece of shit. You are so dishonest. This is like the furthest thing from the truth right here. You just went, oh my god, this is fucking insane. So you got a message from Team YouTube saying that this content was meant to be sexually gratifying, and then you somehow equate that to the subject of the video where you talk about a pedo, and then you say, you think that pedos touching kids is sexually gratifying? Oh god. You guys must be sick pedo fucks if you think that kids are sexually gratifying you. Jesus Christ, YouTube is a whole bunch of fucking sickos. They're a whole bunch of predators. No, dude.
Now, yes, when you frame it like that, it does sound like Max is doing a dick move. However, that is nothing more than a perception of what's been said, because this can be perceived in multiple ways. If you were to have looked at the image without any context whatsoever, it would be a legitimate question to ask if this burns a fire deep inside your loins. It's literally a 480p picture of a digital player's ass. What? Then take in the whole reason it was put in the video to begin with, and then you have another case of legitimately asking if people find this sexually gratifying. Only when you frame it as, whoa, you think grooming kids is hot, do you get the situation that Lyrics made. It's all based on perception, and not to say that Lyrics could be wrong, because maybe that was the legitimate question that they were asking, but seeing as he went in on the same way that other creators have, saying that this was based on lies to begin with from the ground up, that fits the narrative of what you want, so that's what you saw. But let's be honest for a second, if it wasn't struck down because of nudity, what would it have been struck down for? Because I'm guessing YouTube probably could have found something else that they were willing to use as an excuse. And even if YouTube couldn't find something in their purposefully vague terms of service and community guidelines, why did it have to be removed altogether? When other things that would match that criteria far more accurately than this video is allowed to stay up on the platform? That is the question we need to be asking. Imagine someone gets arrested for calling a woman a dumb bitch in a country where they have made a law saying that misogyny can be considered hate speech. God, I love the UK. And you respond with, well, what do you expect? You know the laws. All the while, the person next to you is riding his prostitute, calling her a worthless piece of fuck meat, and no one bats an eye. Technically, you are correct to point out the laws, but it doesn't make the law exactly right now, does it? I could have swore I said there wouldn't be any hyperbole in this video, but no, we move on. Let's get into the next big issue that at least the commentary community had over this whole thing. The claims being that creators who were involved in this video were left in the dark over the intent of what the video was going to be about and what it was going to be for. Being more so a hashtag movement than the classic YouTube has a problem video that comes up once a year at this point. And a few people who have yet to be named went crying into the DMs of other commentary creators about, oh, they didn't know what was going to happen. Now this is where it gets a bit fucky, because I've seen two lines of reasoning why people are upset over this whole situation. First one being that he supposedly lied to creators about the intent of the video, and that's why he had a disclaimer in the video before they had their collaborations. And the other being that he lied about lying to the creators and that they did know what was going on, and the fact that he put the disclaimer in the video when they did know what was going on means that he was lying to people watching, and why would you have the disclaimer to begin with anyway? Spoilers, both takes are retarded. The second one more so than the first one, because who's actually going to get mad over a creator wanting to take the flak over other people involved in his project? First one is because what kind of video were you expecting it to fucking be? Let's assume for a second that the most bare bones of context was given to these creators. They hear that MamaMax is making a video about how YouTube silences creators who talk about sensitive topics. Max has a history of doing hashtag movements, as last year he did the hashtag AnswerUsPedotube. And in this little snippet of the lead DM, yes I know I haven't got the full thing, I'm sorry, but I'm not an investigator, I just chat shit to a camera. It says the context of it right there. Dark content and investigative channels. I went to my own mother, who is so far detached from YouTube that she thinks cat videos are still new and original, and asked her what kind of content does she think this implies, and she got it in fucking one. If you couldn't be bothered to put two and two together from a creator who has a history of doing this, and couldn't be bothered to ask for more context, that's on you. And hell, even after the video was released, instead of going to Max, you went and cried into Tipster's DMs about it like a little bitch. Fuck off. So we've had the dishonest reasoning argument, and we've had the lying to collaborators argument, both weaker than an ant's fart. So let's have some of the more valid criticisms that we can make, shall we? The verbiage used, and the people he called out at the very end. In the video, Max not only heavily insinuates that YouTube are going out of their way to defend paedophiles,
and despite all of the conflicting personalities you're about to see, you'll notice that there's one thing that does bring us all together. We don't like pedophiles. Something you don't seem to see eye to eye with us on YouTube.
but says outright that they love them.
And tonight, YouTube will choose. Let die the pedophiles they love, or suffer the little children.
Now yes, the last line in particular was a play on words from the OG Spider-Man movie, but the words are said nonetheless. And it's totally understandable that as a YouTuber, hearing those words, your immediate response is to put the helmet on and dive into the bunker for a week or so. Even for dramatic effect, this verbiage is very dangerous, because it can backfire harder than rimming your partner after Taco Tuesday. And has followed up in later conversations, including my interview by the way, that he has rolled back that perception. And that although you can't deny that these actions objectively protect pedos, he is unsure if YouTube is doing this purposefully to protect them and believes that the question is still worth asking. And I agree. This will lead into the next issue, but one of the people that Max called out at the end of his video, Charlie, aka Moist Critical, a year ago had a conversation directly with Mama Susan herself, in regards to community guideline violations and how old videos were getting struck by the new guidelines that had come in. He brought up how YouTube can use their own studio software to highlight things that have been flagged. And in that editor, you can use it to either censor that particular thing, cut it out, mute it, or then contest it. Much like how they have it for their copyright system. That thing that many people make an insane amount of money out of. So of course that was fucking made. So when a platform has the means and publicly state that they want to protect kids, but by proxy don't, it's a perfectly reasonable question to ask why they haven't. And let's be fair, we all knew the answer. Of course they don't protect paedophiles. Of course they don't want to protect paedophiles. But it was more about the response than the answer itself. Much like how this video was more about the core than the delivery. This was a kick up the arse to get them to do something about it. I agree that flat out saying this sort of stuff is dangerous. That it is one hell of a gamble and can cost people who haven't bet on it. But so far, it's looked like it's worked. And it's like the good saying says, if it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid. But I will say that rewording it to be less charged probably would have given you the same kind of reply from YouTube, all the while getting a much better response from the community overall. And now, for the people who are called out at the end. Oh boy. Now I know some of the names are really fucking obvious, like some of the more popular news groups, the commentary channels like Keemstar, Scarce, Ethan Klein, Philip DeFranco, even if that was a jab at him being a massive fucking pussy these days. YouTube and Mama Susan, obviously. Moist Critical, it's a stretch, but I do see the reasoning. He did have direct contact with YouTube over very similar things, and he himself have made very similar charged videos to YouTube. I believe it was over animal cruelty back then. Though I do love how people were trying to dunk on Max when he responded to Charlie's initial response on a live stream, saying that Max was going entirely the wrong way about it. So he put up some tweets and showed that maybe Charlie was being perhaps a little bit hypocritical given how hard he went at YouTube over the animal abuse thing. And then when Charlie made his full video and it was more refined, it was more detailed and kind of agrees a lot more with Max than how Max perceived it originally, took down those tweets and everyone was like, oh, why'd you delete those tweets? Ha ha ha. Oh, you pulled back? You pulled back what you were saying? Ha 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 ha. Me big brain. Ah, yeah, that guy who said something and then when more information and context came out, decided to retract his statement and edited it and said something different. God, what a fucking L on him. Boy, I hope no one else in the community gets caught out reeling their takes back. Now the final names. Chris Hansen, Shane Dawson, Corpse Husband. These were the names that got most people, including me, doing a big old double take. Chris, although being the OG pedo hunter, nowadays is just a bumbling buffoon full of hot air and ego. Shane is, well, Shane. And Corpse really had nothing to do with this, and to Max's own admission, was a petty fuck you. Now I can't lie, I'm quite the petty fuck too. I can relate with doing something like this. Personally, I probably would have kept it to you fucking owe me, and seeing as you're not responding to my DMs, you've kind of forced my hand, and I wouldn't have aired out the dirty laundry, but I'm not about to dismiss this whole video over that. And much like I did, let's not forget that Shane did do darker investigation videos before he started doing quirky, funny ghost hunts and, oh, I'm being quirky and silly and ooh. So maybe Max does believe that this could have been a redemption arc for him. I personally don't believe it would have been, but that's my personal opinion. But let's just take names out of the equation for just 1 second and let's just focus on the point at hand. This was a public call out to force people to talk about an issue that they might not be willing to talk about. And I do completely get the resentment for that kind of behaviour. There have been plenty of topics that I probably should have talked about, but I chose not to for many different reasons. At the end of the day, it is my right to decide what I talk about on my channel. And compelled speech is a very dangerous thing. We're starting to see that in play with the more woke nations. And aligning with these methods, I can't agree with. This was the weakest part of the video for me, which is ironic given that the whole video was to be talking about having the right to talk about the things that you want to talk about. If we took the diddling out of the equation, this conversation boils down to free speech. Something that every YouTuber and their mother should be backing. But the water got muddied by the stench of pedos and suddenly everyone doesn't want to jump in the pool. And then there's a side that people who are deciding to not talk about the video or point out particular things negatively about the video are being called pedos or pedo supporters. Guys, I say this like I need to tell you, but I know that the audience here is a more mature setting, so I hope I don't need to tell you this. This is so not the way to go about it. People have the right to talk about whatever the fuck they want. Don't go labelling someone with quite possibly the worst thing you can call someone because of it. You ruin the argument, and if you're a fan of Max, you make him look worse. We are an outrage culture, we're a accountability culture, whatever the fuck you want to call it, but for God's sake, can we have just a little bit of fucking nuance? Please? But that leads us to the question that's in the title of this video. Does the ends justify the means? And honestly, I believe so. Much like how I can agree with ideas from people that I absolutely fucking hate, I can overlook the gripes and the issues if the core topic resonates with me. And in this case, the core topic is we should have the right to talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about, providing it's legal. No matter the severity, even if that includes age restriction or demonetization, whatever. And not be under the constant fear of a bullshit system having the ability to Thanos snap your entire existence on the platform overnight. This, however, will require more maintenance from individual communities. Not only would it require content being more thoroughly scanned for actual illegal things, but this kind of scene really needs to shape the fuck up. We all saw the absolute dogshit circus act that was the EDP 445 sting operation, and the other god-awful videos that those idiots made. This shit needs to be cleaned up. This needs to be done more professionally, with ongoing connections with either local PD or federal, whatever required for the story that you're talking about, and needs to be all on the up and up according to the law. We've been having that with every other stem of content creation. And just because you're busting pedos doesn't mean you should get an exception from that. And if you are one of the channels that are on the up and up and a prim and proper, do the right thing and call out the cowboys. Make a point to condemn that kind of behaviour. On top of the conversation that Max is having with YouTube, I believe that's how we sort this shit out. But the big fucking elephant in the room. Except for me, alright? I'm dieting, shut the fuck up. There is one burning question in my mind about all of this. Where was the pushback when the exact same comments, the exact same outrage was being pointed directly at Netflix over the whole cuties fiasco? I saw so many people calling out Netflix, calling them pro-pedo, calling them pedo enablers. And as far as I can tell, fucking no one of significance came out saying, whoa, that's a bit too far, chief. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the question I want to leave with you. Why do you think that there is so much more pushback when doing it to YouTube versus when doing it to Netflix? I'll let Max answer this too, along with a few other questions. Now, a quick disclaimer, this is an interview, not a debate. I'm not a pro-interviewer, and Max already knew that I agreed with the majority of what he was saying to begin with. If you wanted a more neutral interviewer, or if you wanted someone to contest his responses, you will not find that here. Is my biasness exposed enough for you guys? Am I going to be called a spineless little bitch at the end of this? Excellent. And by the way, I know I sound a little bit off, but I just started doing the keto diet, so I was having a real big crash due to having no carbs in my system. So I know I sound a little bit weird, and perhaps I wasn't quite as focused as I should have been with my words and stuff, but... Okay, so Max, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to this absolute nobody on the internet about the hot topic. I know that you are probably in incredible high demand to be talked to at the moment, so I do genuinely appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, guys. I'm happy to be here.
I'm going to come in with the hard and the fast question.
Yes.
I think I know the answer, but I got to ask it. Do you honestly believe YouTube are intentionally protecting pedos? Or is this just, or was this just a power play to get them to respond?
I don't think they're intentionally. I think it's possible they are, but that's not why I made this, the way I made it.
Sure. Like, I feel like most people knew that, but a lot of people seem to be catching on thinking that you genuinely believe that. And I wanted to get like a definitive answer. Do you think it or not?
No, yeah, I don't. I think it's possible, but no, I don't. I personally don't believe that. And I feel like I make it pretty obvious in the video that that is my stance. They are indirectly protecting them by silencing us. Is my stance. Yeah.
I would agree, and like I can see a few of the arguments being made because there's a few like direct lines. If you take them as what they are, sounds like you believe that thing. But
oh yeah,
I feel like the hyperbole of the whole spectacle kind of gives away that it's not meant to be taken quite so literal. But it's nice sometimes to get just straightforward lines. So thank you for that one.
No, thank you.
I saw that you got YouTube to eventually respond to you in regards to your previous video. Is there any news we can talk about that, if you can talk about anything?
In terms of the details of the phone call, they asked me to keep everything confidential. I don't know why, because it didn't seem like anything we were talking about couldn't have been, like, talked about, but... I did promise to be confidential about that, but they did say I could say we had a phone call about the future of YouTube and that we are going to meet in person to figure out what the fuck we're going to do.
That's surprising. I genuinely expected not to hear anything back from them. I thought they would just go radio silent and let everyone else just eat each other up.
Same. I thought they were going to do that, and then if any of these bigger channels were to speak up, like, Corpse, then I feel like at that point they'd have no choice but to respond. But yeah, I was very grateful that they chose to respond to me, despite how mean I was.
Yeah, I mean, I think the buzz certainly helped with it because you got a lot of people talking about it for both sides, and I think that was a tactic from the get-go, wasn't it? It was
correct. Not
really your video. It was about no matter who was responding, it was no matter they were talking about it, therefore it's getting that message out, whether you're against it or for it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm genuinely glad to hear that they're actually taking notes because, well, it kind of goes into the next question I really wanted to ask is like, what is the level of openness from YouTube that what are you fighting for? Is it just for the videos to be up, or is it that you would like them to not be age restricted, or would you like them to be not demonetized? Like, I think we can agree that the material that's talked about is of an adult nature, even though it is of the abuse of children. Right?
Yes.
So we can probably agree that it should be sort of age restricted to a degree.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, I don't mind an age restriction, at least for my content. To answer the question, like you were asking, like, what is this all about? Like, age restrictions, demonetization, videos taken down, like, it is just pushing back from them punishing content creators like me who expose criminal activity. Like, for me personally, I don't care if I make money. You can demonetize all my videos. You can age restrict all my videos. I don't care, as long as I get the message out there. But I also want to create an environment where this kind of content can survive, Like, I don't want it to just get removed and we're, like, starting to progress towards this, like, almost like acceptance of pedophilia, which I don't think should be the case. And I don't think YouTube wants that to be the case. It's just, that's how their community guidelines ends up screwing with all of us who do investigative type material with darker subject matter.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's one of the answers I wanted to really sort of nail down, because there was a few people saying, it's like, oh, you want to be making money off of this, or you want to be doing this. So is it just that you want it out there? Like, I know there's a few channels that have talked about monetization and whatnot, which that's probably a lot more of a grayer subject to get into,
Right.
but your main goal is just have it out there and not be silenced for doing the right thing.
At least for me, yeah. But for the all-encompassing every creator, I would like to have an environment to where you could monetize this kind of content. But not for me. I know that my videos are too visceral and over the top to where they wouldn't be monetized, so I don't care. But
That's fair.
if there is a smaller channel that's doing it super professionally and objectively, they should absolutely be monetized.
Fair play, fair play. Next question I want to really ask you about is, how do you feel about people comparing you to Matt Watson or Matt Sweaties? Like, I've heard that one, and that one sort of gave me whiplash when I heard it first time. But how do you feel about the comparison?
I think it's hilarious because I think I said this on another podcast, I think Half Baked, but the only thing comparable between us is that we are talking about pedos on YouTube. And that is like the extent to which you can compare me to him, because his whole message is completely different. Like, his is targeting advertisers and YouTube for protecting pedophile content, like them timestamping videos with little children where they're like raising their legs or whatever. Whereas mine is the inverse. I am trying to get protections in place for anti-pedophile content. So it's like almost the exact opposite, and yet still these comparisons don't even make any sense to me. It feels like they didn't even watch the video, or like they're looking at they just see the hashtag and they're like, oh my god, this is YouTube Wake Up Part 2. Oh no, the adpocalypse. And I don't even think a single advertiser pulled out.
I don't think they did either, because, well, no one ran to them about it. And
exactly.
If it's okay for me to inject my personal feelings on the matter, it felt like you were fighting for basically a refined form of a free speech argument.
Definitely.
Whereas I'm not sure exactly what Matt was trying to get other than a publicity stunt for his own channel.
No,
and
for real.
it was a mental comparison I've heard, and I just wanted to get your take on the matter.
No, yeah, it's funny. It's vacuous. It doesn't make any sense to me. It makes sense to me to the effect that you're only looking at the hashtag and you immediately like have made up your mind about it, rather than actually digging up what it's about, which is why I made it, so people would dig up what it's about, like look into it and have a discussion about it.
I agree, and I think for most people it was just a knee-jerk reaction, especially from mostly commentary community. A knee-jerk reaction of seeing it happen the first few times, being like, oh god, here we go again, sort of thing. And maybe they just had that sort of stigma in their heads before really sort of chewing on it a bit. But
I think so.
Maybe I'm giving them benefit of the doubt. But
okay, so here's the thing. I do believe if Matt Watson never existed and that whole thing didn't ever happen, I feel like they'd be on my side. Like, they'd have no reason to be like, oh yeah, nice. But because that happened, they have that stigma.
Quite possibly. Like, I feel like there'd be a lot more edgier content if Logan Paul didn't do what he did the first time round as well. Like, I think that the stigma only sort of comes about after one person gets their head in the chopping block. If it hadn't happened, then maybe someone else would have taken his place. Maybe not. I'm not too sure. But I feel like a lot of people are quick to compare to the bad things, and it's always apocalypse. It's always about money. And I think some things shouldn't be about money. But
no, yeah, I agree. It's sad, but also I do understand, like, this is people's livelihood.
Of course. And
so
I do get that, but I feel like there's some things you need to stand for myself, but I get where they're coming from. But
exactly, yeah.
The next question I want to ask about the quote line to creators in your video. I want to sort of like peel apart that a bit more, because from what I gather, some of them are annoyed that you left them in the dark and that you admitted to that in the text before you had everyone on giving their 2 cents about the whole thing, while others seem to be under the impression that you did in fact tell them about it and you lied about keeping them in the dark, and it was almost like you were trying to take the weight of whatever they were saying onto your shoulders because, well, they didn't know what you were doing. I want to get a grip of where that sort of idea coming from. Do you feel like you conned anyone?
No, that certainly wasn't the intention. Like, I do admit that I should have said this is about a hashtag or something along those lines. But I assumed everyone knew what I was up to since I said it was a giant collaboration, and I did this last time with hashtag AnswerUsPedoTube like a year ago. And based on my content, I felt like people would know how hyper aggressive I am. And I also gave them like 5 paragraphs long. Like, I assumed if anyone wanted more than that, they would have asked for the script, which is what Nick and Ryan did. And I sent them the script, and they accepted it. And if anyone else had asked for the script, I would have sent it to them. Like, it wasn't like with the intention to lie to them. It was, okay, I gotta get this video out by the week. I'm gonna write up a quick paragraph so I can send it to all these over 50 creators I sent it to. And just leave it at that. With any questions asked, I can answer. But no one asked any questions, so that might have caused like this one, like 1 or 2 people said they were uncomfortable with how big the video got and how, you know, flamboyant I am. But the rest of everyone were like, yeah, I knew exactly what you were going to do, man. And I knew what I was getting a part of. So it was really like these 1 or 2 people that leaked the DMs, and then, you know, the commentary channels starting to like, oh, Max lied.
Yeah, it was so bizarre because like it took me about a whole 30 seconds to realise, like reading the leaked DM that came out and how it was worded, and everyone saying, oh, you're being vague with what you would be talking about. It's like I took 2 seconds to read what you said, like knowing your channel, how you present videos, about what videos you talk about, and the fact you put in, I think it was dark comment and investigative YouTube channels. I even went to like family members who have no part of YouTube and asked them instinctively what would they think kind of content that would involve, and they hit the nail on the head. So I don't understand how YouTubers suddenly had their rug pulled out on them on this one.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was just a misunderstanding with like 1 or 2 creators who, I guess they didn't know what they were getting into.
Maybe, but
that does make me regret like not saying, yeah, this is for a hashtag. But like I said, I was in a rush. I thought they knew, and if they didn't know, I thought they would have asked. And that's about boils it down.
I don't see how it could have been that you were lying to people. And I also don't see them blowing it out of proportion to the same level. I just feel like there was a little bit of miscommunication, which was then taken out of proportion later on.
Definitely.
The joys of the internet. You mentioned very quickly at the beginning of the talk about like Corpse Husband and a few of the people that you brought up, and I really wanted to ask your rationale on why certain names are brought up, given their notoriety in the ecosphere, in on the internet,
right?
How people know about them, or some that were just out of left field. So is it right if I just go through a couple of them that were unusual to see?
Like, what was my reasoning behind picking those specific people? They were all hand chosen by me specifically. So, like Keemstar Scarce, Charlie, those were all guys who backed me up before.
Yeah.
And I knew they'd have my back this time. So that's why I chose those guys. Ethan, because he talked to YouTube for me on my behalf the last time this happened. Philip DeFranco, because I reached out to him and he didn't cover it. Like, he didn't tweet about it, didn't say shit about it. And that kind of made me angry, because that video he did that week, he padded time by talking about the stain on his sweatshirt instead of like he could have covered my story easily, even if it was just like a 1-second thing. I don't care, as long as you say something. Like, it was big enough to talk about. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%. I'll be honest, I've had a bad taste in my mouth for Philip DeFranco for a couple of years at this point, so it doesn't really surprise me. And I also get him being on there because news reporter, like internet news, like this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, the ones I really want to ask you about is first one, Chris Hansen. Like, obviously, like notorious, the OG. But given his recent time in the limelight on the internet and how he might have done oopsie whoopsies with certain cases, did you feel like it was going to be more harm than good bringing him up, or was this like the 200 IQ play to get the commentary community to be talking, being like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?"
It was absolutely inflammatory. But I did genuinely think he could have like contacted someone for us. I don't want him like working with me, you know, because I know his history. Yeah. But I do think he has instruments at his disposal that would be useful for us. And plus, you know, since the whole thing, like, people don't like him, this is your chance to, like, redeem yourself. You were an inspiration to me. I'm happy to give you this chance. I felt like it was an interesting thing to include.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And it was interesting to see people's take on it, and I was just curious whether you genuinely wanted him on, or if it was just for the wave that it would make talking about it. Which I'm going to guess is a similar sort of thing for Shane Dawson. Because I'm entirely confused by this one. I'm entirely confused by this one.
It's a bit the same thing with Chris Hansen, you know. Everyone hates him, but he is the biggest one in our genre, like covering stories. Like he covered like that one YouTuber who was getting trafficked, or who was about to get trafficked.
That was years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. So
it's interesting to see how he's changed from being that sort of like dark investigative commentary, conspiracy theory guy to doing quirky ghost hunts or whatever he's doing now. Like it's
for real. And it makes me mad because it's like, you could use all of this power for good. So let me just include your name on here, since everyone already hates you and you have a lot of power influence, and I think I can use it. So, but the difference between him and Chris Hansen is I don't think Chris Hansen is genuinely a bad guy. Like, I think he just doesn't know what he's doing. Whereas Shane, I think he's a piece of shit. And, but if I could have used him, then I would have been more than happy to use him.
Oh, for sure. Like some people, you need their name on boards, and if they can do something, if you don't like them, then you got to grin and bear it.
Exactly. So yeah, like Chris Hansen, I thought he was an interesting choice to include in the list of names.
That's fair. That's fair. Then the last one, the elephant in the room, corpse. Like, I get the kind of the sassier sort of strikeout, because I'm more than familiar with doing that myself from time to time. But did you feel like he was going to say anything? Because like the main argument I was going to say is like at the very end of your discussion about him is that he's completely blanked you after talking to you. But he seems to be completely offline anyway. Do you have it like? Do you know that he's actually still alive? Is he just like?
He's been active.
Did he take a? Oh, he has been active.
So I have him on Discord. He hasn't removed me yet. I see him like going online every now and then. I've gotten word from mutuals that he has seen it.
Right.
And I genuinely did think he would respond, because he doesn't ever give a shit until it's made public. And so that's why I thought he would respond. Not to dog on him too much. Like, he and I actually used to be really good friends. And I thought what he did to me was like kind of shitty, and it was petty of me to like expose him for it, you know? But at the same time, it's for something fucking important. So I think the least you could do is tweet about me, you know?
Yeah, I do get the rationale. I mean, like the real question is, does the ends justify the means? And if the only thing you're going to get is a few people saying that you shouldn't have done that, or it was cringe, or it's like maybe that's a reasonable thing. You can live with that. But
exactly,
it was definitely bizarre. Like, even like taking in the account of the popularity of him and the fact that you've had a history and all that sort of stuff. It just seemed very much out of left field. And
oh yeah, I think that only enhanced. Like, how jarring it was only enhanced, like, the message in terms of how much it spreads. Because obviously corpse stands are going to be angry and, like, screaming to the high heavens about it. So I thought, why not make it about something that I feel is just?
That's perfectly reasonable, because, my God, they cry about anything else.
I'm glad you think so.
I do not like stan culture in the slightest. I detest it in all factors, which kind of actually goes on to my next question. It's not stans per se, but it's the kind of behaviour the stans have.
Oh yeah.
All of these YouTubers that have been talking about it on Twitter, who haven't gone out of their way to make a YouTube video, or maybe have started picking holes in the execution, not the actual message. And then you've got all of the followers and stuff saying, well, you're supporting paedophiles. Well, you obviously pro-paedophilia. How do you feel about that? Do you support that kind of attitude online? Do you really feel like if you aren't going to say something publicly and loud, you are defending pedos? Or is it people's prerogative to actually choose what they want to talk about or not?
No, absolutely not. Like, I think it's... Like, if Philip DeFranco doesn't want to cover this, I'm fine with that. I am going to get angry and call him out for it, but He is more than welcome to have his own freedom of speech, just as I am. I'm not going to get mad. I'm just doing it so that something gets done, you know.
That's fair.
As in terms of like my audience calling people pedophiles for not like just talking about it, I think that's a bit silly, you know.
Yeah.
I'd rather them save their energy for actual pedophiles, but
Reasonable.
yeah. But I can understand their anger and their fury, because after God, it's so fucking miserable being a survivor of child sexual abuse, and then having someone cover it, and then that person's videos get removed, and then people calling that person stupid for covering it the way they did. Like, I only do things the way I do because of my audience, because of their traumas, you know. And so I can understand being so fucking furious when someone isn't saying something, or someone is saying something like, I pick pedophiles just to be funny or whatever. I can understand when they start calling everyone pedophiles, because it's like, how can you not side with the children, you know?
Yeah.
Not to say it's justified, but I understand
No.
where they're coming from.
Yeah, because I was going to say it's almost a double-edged sword in that way, because the thing of the children, it is a powerful message, it's a powerful reason, it's a powerful logic.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who, perhaps over the years, have used and abused that to a point where it's not as powerful as it should be. People like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe that's sort of one of the reasons why people aren't so willing to just push right out and support the movement.
Oh yeah, and I understand that completely.
You jumped on something just then when you were speaking, and it was one of the questions that came from my server, asking about how are you able to continue swimming in the filth of like these nonce rings? Like, how much has it affected you mentally doing this sort of stuff?
It affected me more when I wasn't covering it, because I knew this shit was going on, but not doing anything about it was the thing that was eating me up inside. And now that I can make a video about it, that's the most cathartic thing for me and my audience, is like finally seeing something being done, finally doing something. That's the thing that, it's like my therapy, basically, is making videos.
Understand that, yeah. I totally get the rationale on that one. I could understand getting the frustration of not being able to do something and being able to put your stuff to a good cause, and finally the weight comes off your shoulders, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's so refreshing.
I was sort of half concerned that you were going to say that this is tedium, this is like hell to do, but you do it because you feel like you need to. But
oh yeah, and I have fun doing it. No, yeah, I love doing this.
Fair play, honestly, fair play to you.
Appreciate it, man.
The final question I want to ask you is, maybe it's a bit of a loaded one, but why do you feel like there is more pushback on calling YouTube pedo defenders when people did the exact same thing to Netflix during the Cuties fiasco and calling them pedo defenders or pedo enablers? Like, why is there so many people that are being like, oh my god, this is too, why are you doing this? This is too far.
Because they weren't, because none of us are on Netflix, and none of us are making money from Netflix. And the people that are making money aren't like small channels where they can make a video being like, this is stupid. You know, they're actual companies that actually have to look professional. I think that's why, honestly. I mean, with Netflix specifically, there was a lot of pushback with, I know Texas started a lawsuit with Netflix. I don't know where that ever went, but because of Cuties, which made me to be a proud Texan.
But I'll have to look into that, actually.
Oh, I hope so.
I believe it's still in the process, but I will have to double check that one.
Yeah, because fuck that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there certainly wasn't a lot of pushback on that there is this. And I do genuinely believe is because people aren't being monetized on Netflix, and so they have no reason to talk about it.
Yeah. I honestly have to agree with you on that one. Final question, then I'll let you get on because I know you're a busy man.
I appreciate it, man.
Obviously, you've talked to YouTube. You can have a person-to-person discussion.
Yeah.
But not my concern, but my question of concern is they say all the things, they give you all the lip service, and then a year down the line they do a Charlie, and they don't implement damn near anything that you've done or suggested or that you've come to conclusions with them, and you're back at square one. Well, what is the plan B here? If you have a plan B.
You'll be hearing from me again.
Fair play.
Maybe not in the same way, because at least they're talking to me. Like, they opened a dialogue. That's all I could have asked for.
Yeah.
Now they got to do what they are promising to do. And if not, yeah, you're going to hear back from me.
I'm very eager to hear how this goes out, because obviously I'm a big person of free speech anyway, even if I'm in a country that doesn't let us have that. But
My man.
But obviously I'm also one for protecting kids as well, so I do appreciate you doing the kind of stuff you do and exposing these pieces of shit, and hopefully we can have YouTube let you do that. That'd be nice.
That would be nice. Thanks, man.
Honestly, thank you again so much for taking the time to speak to us, and all I can say is I truly hope for the best for you, mate.
No, man, thank you. I really appreciate the fuck out of this. It means a lot.
Trust me, it means a lot more to me, but... And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to end the video. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, why not slap that big fat like button? If you didn't like it, well, why not hit the dislike button? I mean, it's not like anyone's going to know you did anyway. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Let's have a little conversation. Maybe my opinion's not the right one. I know there's going to be many different ways of thinking about this whole thing, but... Hey, let's have a little bit of fun, shall we? As said before, guys, if you haven't already, why not consider subscribing to the channel, flicking my bell to be alerted for when new videos are released. Many thank yous to my Patreon supporters, as per usual, specifically Commander Nazrin, Flippy, The Eternal J, Mamie, Memeland Security, Admiral Vape, DJ Uchu, and Leslie Bertolino. Thank you all so very much for supporting the channel. Twitter, Discord, links down below as per usual, guys. Feel free to come over, feel free to get a conversation going. Feel free to check out videos about my head right now, and I'll see you guys in the next one. But until that day, take it easy.